What's up, guys? Welcome to April 1st, also April Fool's Day, I guess. We will be starting in Judges towards the last verse of Judges chapter 3, verse 31. Shamgar becomes Israel's judge. After Ehud, Shamgar, son of Athan, rescued Israel. He once killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad. Deborah becomes Israel's judge. Chapter 4. After Ehud's death, the Israelites again did evil in the Lord's sight. So the Lord turned them over to King Jabin of Hazor, a Canaanite king. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth Hagayim. Sisera, who had 900 iron chariots, ruthlessly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years, and the people of Israel cried out to the Lord for help. Deborah, the wife of Lebedoth, was a prophet who was judging Israel at that time. She would sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites would go to her for judgment. One day she sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, who lived in Kadesh in the land of Naphtali. She said to him, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, commands you. Call out 10,000 soldiers, 10,000 warriors from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun at Mount Tabor, and I will call out Sisera, commander of Jabin's army, along with his chariots and warriors, into the Kishon River. There I will give you victory over him." Barak told her, "I will go, but only if you go with me." "Very well," she replied. "I will go with you, but you will receive no honor in this venture, for the Lord's victory over Sisera will be at the hands of a woman." So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh. At Kadesh, Barak called together the tribes of Reuben and Naphtali, and 10,000 warriors went up with him. Deborah also went with him. Now Heber the Kenite, a descendant of Moses' brother-in-law Hobab, had moved away from the other members of his tribes and pitched his tent by the oak of Zanenim near Kadesh. When Sisera was told that Barak, son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor, he called for all 900 of his iron chariots and all of his warriors, and they marched from Harosheth Hagayim to the Kishon River. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Get ready. This is the day the Lord will give you victory over Sisera, for the Lord is marching ahead of you." So Barak led his 10,000 warriors down the slope of Mount Tabor into battle. When Barak attacked, the Lord threw Sisera and all his chariots and warriors into a panic. Sisera leaped down from his chariot and escaped on foot. Then Barak chased the chariots and the enemy army all the way to Harosheth Hagayim, killing all of Sisera's warriors. Not a single one was left alive. Meanwhile, Sisera ran to the tent of Jair, the wife of Heber the Kenite, because Heber's family was on friendly terms with King Jabin of Hazor. Jewel went out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Come into my tent, sir. Come in, don't be afraid." So he went into her tent, and she covered him with a blanket. "Please give me some water," he said. "I'm thirsty." So she gave him some milk from a leather bag and covered him up. Stand at the door of the tent," he told her. "If anyone comes and asks if there is anyone here, say no." But when Sisera fell asleep from exhaustion, Jair quietly crept up to him with a hammer and tent peg in her hand. Then she shoved the tent peg through his temple and into the ground, and so he died. When Barak came looking for Sisera, Jair went out to meet him. She said, "Come out and I will show you the man you are looking for." So he followed her into the tent and found Sisera lying there, dead, with the tent peg through his temple. So on that day, Israel saw God defeat Jabin, the Canaanite king, and from that time on, Israel became stronger and stronger against King Jabin until they finally destroyed him. Chapter 5. The son of Deborah. On that day, Deborah and Barak son of Benamim sang this song. Israel's leaders took charge, and the people gladly followed. Praise the Lord. Listen, you kings, pay attention, you mighty rulers, for I will sing to the Lord. I will make music to the Lord, the God of Israel. Lord, when you set out from Seir and marched across the fields of Edom, the earth trembled, and the cloudy skies poured down rain. The mountains quaked in the presence of the Lord, the God of Mount Sinai, in the presence of the Lord, the God of Israel. In the days of Shamgar, son of Anath, and in the days of Jared, people avoided the main roads, and travelers stayed on winding pathways. There were few people left in the villages of Israel, until Deborah arose as a mother for Israel. When Israel chose new gods, war corrupted at the city gates, yet not a shield or spear could be seen among 40,000 warriors in Israel. My heart is with the commanders of Israel, with those who volunteer for war. Praise the Lord. Consider this, you who ride on fine donkeys, you who sit on fancy saddled blankets, and you who walk along the road. Listen to the village musicians gather at the watering holes. They recount the righteous victories of the Lord and the victories of his villagers in Israel. Then the people of the Lord marched down to the city gates. Wake up, Deborah, wake up, wake up, wake up, and sing a song. Arise, Barak. Lead your captives away, son of Abinim. Down from Tabor marched the few against the nobles. The people of God marched down against mighty warriors. They came down from Ephraim, a land that once belonged to the Amalekites. They followed you, Benjamin, with your troops. From Machir, the commanders marched down. From Zebulun came those who carried a commander's staff. The princes of Issachar were with Deborah and Barak. They followed Barak, rushed into the valley, but in the tribe of Reuben there was great indecision. Why did you sit at home among the sheepfolds to hear the shepherds whistle for their flocks? Yes, in the tribe of Reuben there was great indecision. Gilead remained east of the Jordan. And why did Dan stay home? Asher sat and moved at the seashores, remaining in his labors. But Zebulun risked his life, as did Naphtali on the heights of the battlefield. The kings of Canaan came and fought at Tanakh near Megiddow's springs, but they carried off no silver treasures. The stars fought from heaven. The stars in their orbits fought against Sisera. The Kishon River swept them away. The ancient torrent, the Kishon, marched on with courage, my soul. Then the horses' hooves hammered the ground. The galloping of Sisera's mighty steeds. Let the people of Meroz be cursed, said the angel of the Lord. Let them be utterly cursed, because they did not come to help the Lord against the mighty warriors. Most blessed among women is Jared, the wife of Heber the Kenite. May she be blessed above all women who live in tents. Sisera asked for water, and she gave him milk. In a bowl fit for nobles, she brought him yogurt. Then with her left hand she reached for a tent peg, and with her right hand for the workman's hammer. She struck Sisera with a hammer, crushing his head. With a shattering blow, she pierced his temples. He sank, he fell, he lay still at her feet, and where he sank, there he died. From the window, Sisera's mother looked out. Through the window she watched for his return, saying, "Why is his chariot so long in coming? Why didn't we hear the sound of chariot's wheels?" Her wise woman answered, and she repeats these words to herself. They must be dividing the captured plunder with a woman or two for every man. There will be colorful robes for Sisera, and colorful embroidered robes for me. Yes, the plunder will include colorful robes embroidered on both sides. Lord, may all your enemies die like Sisera, but may those who love you rise like the sun in all its power. Then there was peace in the land for 40 years. Gideon becomes Israel's judge. Chapter 6. The Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight, so the Lord handed them over to the Midianites for 7 years. The Midianites were so cruel that the Israelites were hiding places for themselves in the mountains, caves, and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, marauders from Midian, Amalek, and the people of the east would attack Israel, camping in the land and destroying crops as far away as Gaza. They left the Israelites with nothing to eat, taking all the sheep, goats, cattle, and donkeys. These enemy hordes coming with their livestock and tents were as thick as locusts. They arrived on droves of camels, too numerous to count, and they stayed until the land was stripped bare. So Israel was reduced to starvation by the Midianites. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord for help. When they cried out to the Lord because of Midian, the Lord sent a prophet to the Israelites. He said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought you out of slavery in Egypt. I rescued you from the Egyptians and brought all who oppressed you. I drove out your enemies and gave you their land. I told you, I am the Lord your God. You must not worship the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you now live, but you have not listened to me." Then the angel of the Lord came and sat beneath the great oak tree of Apharah, which belonged to Joash of the clan of Abiezer. Gideon, son of Joash, was threshing wheat at the bottom of the winepress to hide the grain from the Midianites. The angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, "Mighty hero, the Lord is with you." "Sir," Gideon replied, "if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? And where are the miracles our ancestors told us about? Didn't they say the Lord brought us out of Egypt? But now that the Lord has abandoned us and has handed us over to the Midianites." Then the Lord turned to him and said, "Go with the strength you have and rescue Israel from the Midianites. I am sending you." "But Lord," Gideon replied, how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest in the whole tribe of Manasseh, and I am the least in my entire family." The Lord said to him, "I will be with you, and I will destroy the Midianites as if you were fighting against one man." Gideon replied, If you are truly going to help me, show me a sign to prove that it is really the Lord speaking to me. Don't go away until I come back and bring my offering to you." He said, "I will stay here until you return." Gideon hurried home. He cooked a young goat, and with a basket of flour, he baked some bread without yeast. Then, carrying the meat in a basket and the broth in the pot, he brought them out and presented them to the angel who was under the great tree. The angel of God said to him, "Place the meat and the unleavened bread on this rock and pour the broth over it." And Gideon did as he was told. Then the angel of the Lord touched the meat and bread with the tip of his staff in his hand, and fire flamed up from the rock and consumed all he had brought, and the angel of the Lord disappeared. When Gideon realizes that it was the angel of the Lord, he cried out, "Oh, sovereign Lord, I'm doomed. I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." "It is all right," the Lord replied. "Do not be afraid. You will not die." And Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and named it Yahweh Shalom. which means the Lord is our peace. The altar remained in Ophrah in the land of the clan of Abiezer to this day. That night the Lord said to Gideon, "Take the second bull from your father's herd, the one that is 7 years old. Pull down your father's altar to Baal, and cut down the Asherah pole standing beside it. Then build an altar to the Lord your God by here on this hilltop sanctuary. Laying the stones carefully, sacrifice the bull as a burnt offering of the altar, using as fuel the wood of the Asherah pole you cut down." So Gideon took 10 of his men, 10 of his servants, and did as the Lord had commanded. But he did it at night because he was afraid of the other members of his father's household and the people of the town. Early the next morning, as the people of the town began to stir, someone discovered that the altar of Baal had been broken down and that the Asherah pole beside it had been cut down. In their place, a new altar has been built, and on it were the remains of the bull that had been sacrificed. The people said to each other, "Who did this?" And after asking around and making a careful research, they learned that it was Gideon, the son of Joash. "Bring out your son," the men of the town demanded of Joash. "He must die for destroying the altar of Baal and for cutting down the Asherah pole." But Joash shouted to the mob that confronted him, "Why are you defending Baal? Will you argue his case? Whoever pleads his case will be put to death by morning. If Baal truly is a god, let him defend himself and destroy the one who broke his altar." From then on, Gideon was called Jerubbaal, which means let Baal defend himself, because he broke down Baal's altar. Soon afterwards, the armies of Midian, Amalek, and the people of the east formed an alliance against Israel and crossed the Jordan, camping in the valley of Jezreel. Then the Spirit of the Lord clothed Gideon with power, and he blew a ram's horn as a call to arms, and the men of the clan of Abiezer came to him. He also sent messengers throughout Manasseh, Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, summoning their warriors, and all of them responded. Then Gideon said to God, "If you are truly going to use me to rescue Israel as you promised, prove it to me in this way. I will put a wolf flea on the threshing floor tonight. If the flea is wet with dew in the morning, but the ground is dry, then I will know that you are going to help me rescue Israel as you promised." And that is just what happened. When Gideon got up early the next morning, he squeezed the flea and flung out a whole bowl full of water. Then Gideon said to God, "Please don't be angry with me. Let me make one more request. Let me see the flea for one more test. This time let the flea remain dry while the ground around it is wet with dew." And so that night God did as Gideon asked. The flea was dry in the morning, but the ground was covered with dew. And so that's the end of today's reading. I guess first of all, I just wanted to kind of go back into the story where it's about the story of Deborah and Jewel. And like the thing for today, I really felt like is God using the least expected people that society would have thought. He used those people to let his plan come true, like for God to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish with the people and stuff. And so women back then is not really seen as warriors or even prophets. They are being just devalued. They don't really contribute to society too much. And yet in God's greatest moment, and then it's like that's how women are viewed then. And then the interesting thing is like, while these two people are faithful to God, and maybe there are more people, but it's like the interesting thing is like the people that are supposed to be leading the nation are causing the nation to fall. and it takes and God has to use a not small, a very an important person from their perspective to kind of in a sense humble them and say like, wow, these leaders who are supposed to obey God, who are supposed to lead their people into ways that honors God, they are actually leading people away from God and causing them to rebel against God. And then God says, okay, if you're gonna do that, I'm gonna use that within your own group, within your own circle of people. I'm gonna use the person that you have least expected, and I will use them to humble you, to show that, in the sense like, no matter what you do, it's like, no matter what position you are, God can choose whoever He wants to choose to humble people. And so yeah, and then the fact that the part that, and then it talks about like Deborah was like telling Barak that when they go to war, she says in verse 9 of chapter 4, I will go with you, but you will receive no honor in this venture, for the Lord's victory over Syria will be at the hands of a woman. And that's like very humbling from their perspective, to be in a sense like saved by women. But yeah, that's like a story that Deborah herself is amazing. It's like God does not use them. Her story shows like God does not show favoritism towards anybody for His goals to be accomplished. A woman who's probably at like her lowest of the lowest causes the greatest accomplishment, and it also happens to humble the leaders of the group. So yeah, I'm not saying that God can't use power. I'm not saying that God cannot use people in power, but when those people in power becomes corrupt, when they start to fall away from God, then I guess in a sense like God is hoping that God knows their hearts, but like in a sense like hoping that like if He uses somebody who's like considered like a servant to them, that maybe using that person to accomplish great things, then maybe it could humble the people who consider themselves to be much powerful, who consider themselves to be more superior than them. And so that's one of the big things that really stood out to me about the theme today is, no matter how smart you are, no matter how small you are, God uses you. God can use you if you allow Him to use you. But yeah, it's interesting. As I'm trying to and this is the other part. The song of Deborah, the part that really stood out to me is like how there were like certain people, certain tribes were willing to fight with Deborah to do what God asks of them, while there were others that are just sitting there, just kind of observing them afar. And so with that, something else that really spoke to me is, as Christians these days, sometimes we don't have a lot of courage to stand up for what God wants, for what God is feeling passionate about. I'm not saying that all Christians are like that, but there are like majority of us are afraid, or just things like, oh, let the other person go make disciples of other people, go make disciples out of their own schools, out in their work, out in their country, or around the world. But it's like God is like sending like an invitation for all of us to participate in the healing of. It's like we're the chosen. chosen a TV show that's about Jesus, one of the things that really stood out in the lines that Jesus said is like he wants everybody to participate in the healings of this world. And I just feel like with the tribes that did not go and help participate in conquering, into defeating the enemies of Israelites, we could sometimes I could be those people that just says, okay, I see that you guys are doing the hard job. Let me just sit back knowing that you guys will probably accomplish it. Instead of just like saying, okay, I know that you guys will be able, probably will be able to accomplish a lot of these things. Let me help you as well. Let me participate in the great work. And so with that, it just, yeah, it's like whenever, don't be shy. If you know that, if you truly believe in God and believe that He has your back, go and make disciples go make disciples with people that you feel uncomfortable with people that you know happens to be non-believers. Go make disciples out of them. Go introduce God to them. But yeah, that's just something that really stood out to me. Don't take note of what's happening with your fellow believers. Go and participate in the great work that God has assigned all of us Christ believers to do, which is go and go share the gospel with people. So and something else that stood out to me is like when Jared when the woman Jared was asked to provide water, she actually provided him with milk. She provided him with yogurt, which is like, it's like all the guy is asking for is water, and the fact that she went above and beyond to show hospitality towards her own enemies. It shows like that even though she doesn't like him, she still cares about him enough where it's like she sees him as a human. And so if this person asks for water, she said, okay, instead of giving you water, let me give you something better, which is milk. I mean, I'm not sure how good milk is, but it's like going above and beyond, going not like when a person asks you to get something for them or do something for them, she kind of says, okay, I'll do these things, but let me go above and beyond in the sense like blessing them. But at the end, it's like she still killed him and stuff. I don't know why she needs to put a peg in his temples to kill him, but yeah, it's just intriguing. It's like sometimes we could like, especially when it comes to people that we don't like. I mean, it's already hard enough for us to go above and beyond with people that we do like sometimes, but it's even harder for us to go above and beyond to show love towards somebody that we do not like, we do not approve of what they do and stuff. And it's like she does it in a way where like she's not encouraging his actions. I don't know if that makes sense. And that's the thing we have to kind of define, like figure out that ourselves, like what is the difference between being loving and showing hospitality towards somebody who you don't like versus doing it in a way where you like almost sense like encouraging them to keep living in their sinful lives and stuff. But yeah, that's just something else that stood out to me. Yeah, the verse of the day is when Gideon says, "But Lord," Gideon replied, "How can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest in the whole tribe of Manasseh, and I'm the least in my entire family." Like I said, God uses the people that we least expecting Him to use, and use those people to accomplish His purpose. And so don't write anybody off. Don't say like, oh, this person is not worth God's attention. They are worth God's attention. They're worth the same amount of God's attention as. They're worth of God's attention is the same as you. So don't tell people that, oh, disregard this person because they're not important enough for us to take their things seriously, taking their opinions, their actions seriously. But yeah, as I'm saying, like, oh yeah, the part that The part that stood out to me the most about Gibeon's story is chapter 6, verses 12, where it says, "The angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, 'Mighty hero, the Lord is with you.' Then verse 13 says, 'Sir,' Gibeon replied, 'if the Lord is with us, why has all of this happened to us? Now where are all the miracles our ancestors told us? Didn't he say that the Lord brought us out of Egypt? But now that the Lord has abandoned us and handed us over to the Midianites.'" And so with that, it's like, and this is like really hard. Like sometimes we struggle with like when we are struggling in our life, when we are facing these obstacles and difficulties in our lives, we're just asking like, where is God? Is God even with us? And so this verse, like the angels really spread this sense of hope, like spread hope into Gibeon's heart, because Gibeon's like suffering just as much as his fellow Israelites were under the Midianites. And so it's like, just because you're not living a perfect, just because you're not seeing the change right now, does not mean that God's not with you. God is with us for our entire life. And the thing is like, and the fact that you say like God is not with us is like kind of absurd, because like God is aware of all things. He's with us at all times. So how can he leave us in a sense? You know, I mean, I guess he could leave us in a sense, like turning his back on us. But the point is, just because we're facing something difficult, that does not mean that God has abandoned us. Just because we have not seen changes yet, that does not mean that God has abandoned us. Just because God has not answered our prayers, that does not mean that God is not with us. God is with us through all of it, guys. And so yeah, and I understand, like I struggle with this as well. It's like I'm just like trusting that God is with me in the midst of my own struggles. Because sometimes it's discouraging to keep dealing with the same issues when you have asked God to change your circumstances, and like it feels like nothing's happening. Maybe God's just saying, be patient. It's like, if you think about it, it's like the people of Israel has to be patient as heck for 40 years to get to the promised land. And then Abraham has to be really patient. God asks him to be patient when it comes to having a family. When it comes to the birth of Isaac, God did not just answer prayers right off the bat. Sometimes he takes time. He takes his own time. Meaning like sometimes it takes a long time from our perspective, so that it tests our faithfulness towards him. Saying, are we patient enough to say, God, I may not see it right now, but I believe that it will eventually happen? Or are we one of those people just like, oh God, you did not answer my prayers right now, so I'm gonna write you off? And so that's like a challenge that we all kind of deal with, and that's okay too. Because I mean, that's not because God understands our human emotions better than we understand our own emotions and stuff. So, but that's just something that really stood out to me. And then God is Yahweh Shalom. The Lord is peace. That's all who God is. And sometimes peace is not how we view peace. God's peace could be totally different from ours. I mean, like it's even more peaceful, or like different shapes and forms of peace. And so that just because the U.S. is not in war with anyone right now, that does not mean it's peace, right? Because like we are corrupt, and God is not going to call that peace. He will not call corruption peace. And so realizing, like, understanding that God's peace is not always what we think it is. So, and this is kind of the last thing I want to kind of touch on. The whole story of Gideon in his family, not just his father, his whole town issue. It's like sometimes it is very hard for us to go against the people that we know, and I have to deal with that too. I'm not saying that. Yeah, it's like dealing with that as well. It's like, but be able to trust, like, if God tells us that we need to talk to this person about something that are sinful, we have to take the brave step of talking to that person. And it's like, and realizing like at the end of the day, it's like you have done the will of God. It does not matter how it comes out. Like, it does not matter how the person may react to the message that God has for them, through you taking that brave step of faith and saying like, I'm gonna go talk to this person who I love and care about, but what they're doing is dishonoring God. To be able to take that brave step and say like, God, I may face criticisms, but I'm gonna trust you that you could work in their hearts because of what I shared and stuff. And that's hard, guys, because like nobody wants to go against their families and friends, because like that would be kind of disrespectful, and it kind of like shows like sense of hate. And so it's like realizing like, I don't know, realizing that not all criticisms are hateful. And that's kind of the thing that I've been dealing with a lot. So like Monday, no, it was yesterday, that was like kind of my first, like, no, 2 days ago was like my first time to really share. I mean, okay, 2 days ago, mean like Saturday, it was really hard for me, because like that was the day when I really share my faith, when I come sharing my beliefs about LGBTQ stuff on the internet. And I like for a while like really struggled to do that, because I care about a lot of people. Because of my friends, and obviously it's like you want to care about people, but it's like for me it's like part of caring about people is to share criticisms, right? Sharing criticisms that you feel like are letting you, like you feel like God is asking you to go share them. And so for me it's like LGBTQ as being like a big issue, as throughout the scripture it talks about like very against LGBTQ stuff. And it's hard for me to share that, because like I know like what I'm getting myself into. I know the criticisms I'm gonna be receiving, but it's like realizing like I'm doing this out of love, and people can interpret that whatever and stuff. And like we cannot control how other people may interpret our message. And so a lot of people like sharing saying you are being very hateful and stuff. And I told them, like, I understand where they're coming from, like what I said may look to be hateful and stuff. But like at the end of the day, I may be saying something one way and intended to be one way, but it's our hearts, I may be like, I'm trying to spread a message about LGBTQ and how I believe it's wrong. I am not responsible for another person who may interpret it differently, who may like twist it and say like you're being hateful for what you said. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to share what I believe in, share it in like a gentle and yet firm way, and let them be the ones to twist the terms into whatever it may be. And something that just really helped me is like, as I face these criticisms, it's like at the end of the day, I feel like that's what God wants me to share. And so if I could do what God is asking me to do, that's all that matters. I don't care about what other people think. I'll try to help them understand where I'm coming from. But if they don't want to understand, that's their fault, right? We cannot change people's opinions about something. I mean, we cannot like change we could contribute to them changing, but we are not the ones to change them. They have to take the initiative steps to say like, okay, I see where you're coming from. Let me change my lifestyle. Let me change the way I think about these hot topics and stuff. But yeah, that's just kind of a lot to share. But I hope that you were able to get some stuff out of it and stuff. And so as a way to end it, I just want to share the Judges chapter 5 verse 31. May those who love you rise like the sun in all its power. So may you guys go and walk with God.